Have you noticed that? We're living in interesting days. And I do believe that in spite of all that is going on, and we live and breathe and have our being amongst people who are finding the most challenging things, and yet we're constantly seeing God's breakthrough. So for us, just a little practical thing, we run all this coding and robotics and everything else, but we got load shedding. And so what happens then? And while I was in the States, I was in Chicago and sharing a bit with a friend of mine there. And she said, well, how much would solar panels cost? So I said, oh, a lot of money. But kind of try to give her a ballpark figure. And the next morning when I got up and we're having breakfast together, she said, Lynn, please will you give me the privilege of supplying the solar panels? Please give me the privilege. And I went, okay then. What is impossible with us is not impossible with our Lord in so many areas. And I do believe that we are in a time of rebuilding, even though there is lots of shaking. Rebuilding and restoring. And I want to share with you a little bit today from the book of Nehemiah. Nehemiah is in the Old Testament, and it's one of those elusive books that you kind of have to go to the book of index to find out exactly where it is, and it's okay to do that. But I love the book of Nehemiah because I love to journal, and I journal almost every day. I write something every day, and my nieces said, Auntie Lynn, when you die one day, I want your journals. And I said, you may have them, sweetheart, after I've gone. And then I don't care what you think about my journals. But I love to journal, and the book of Nehemiah is the journal of this man, Nehemiah. Had such values, and as we look at the book, it's got such values of the kingdom of God. And Nehemiah was in a situation where he had an incredible burden for the city of Jerusalem, the city of peace, that was in ruins and devastation. Very similar to the world that we're living in today. Very similar to our economy around us. Very similar to the challenges that we are facing. And he gets this burden to go back to Jerusalem and rebuild the walls. We know the story. And he gets the commissioning of the king Xerxes, but he also gets the commissioning of the King of Kings. The Lord commissions him to go and rebuild. And the amazing thing in the rebuilding, and I want us to know this, that none of us can rebuild alone. And I love what you guys are doing here. It is no longer church as normal where we kind of sit and spectate. It is time for the church to rise up as a community together. That it's not just one person's job or those who employed job. It's all of us together. All of us. And you are part of that. Sorry if I'm shouting. I don't really mean to shout at you. I'm shouting with you. And we are never meant to build alone. But wherever God is on the move, there will always be opportunities, but there will always be opposition. Always. The enemy always wants to stop us. Now, I'm not infatuated with the enemy, but I want to be aware of his tactics. We live and move in an area where there are lots of gangs around us. We don't want to become a gang member, but we want to be aware of their plans and strategies. And by the way, we've got a plan for their life in Jesus. That's for sure. And sometimes that opposition comes directly, and sometimes that opposition comes indirectly. And sometimes the greatest battles that we have, that I have had, is in this area up here, in my mind. And so, beloved, if we are going to be those who accept that mandate from God to rebuild, it matters what we listen to. And it matters who we listen to. It matters what we listen to, and it matters who we listen to. And so I'm going to read a bit of Nehemiah to you, if that's okay. We're going to listen to a bit of the story. And I'm going to go to Nehemiah chapter 6. It will be up here. You can follow with me. And it says this. And when the word came to Sanballat, Tobiah, and Geshem the Arab, and the rest of our enemies, that I had built the wall, and not a gap was left in it, though up to that time I had not set the doors in the gates. Sanballat and Geshem sent me this message. Come, let us meet together in one of the villages on the plains of Ono. You getting what I'm just playing with words here. But they were scheming to harm me. So I sent messages to them with this reply. I am carrying on a great project, and I cannot go down. Why should the work stop while I leave it to go down to you? 4 times they sent me the same message, and each time I gave them the same answer. Then, the 5th time, Sanballat sent his aide to me with the same message, and in his hand was an unsealed letter in which was written, "It is reported among the nations," and Geshem, I don't know why I'm speaking like that, "It is reported among the nations, and Geshem says it's true." Well, if Geshem says it's true, it must be true, hey? No. That you and the Jews are plotting to revolt, and therefore you are building the wall. Moreover, according to these reports, you're about to become their king, and have even appointed prophets to make this proclamation about you in Jerusalem. There is a king in Judah. Now this report will get back to the king. So come, let us meet together. Ever had a letter like that? And I sent him this reply. Nothing like what you're saying is happening. You are just making it up out of your head. They are all trying to frighten us, thinking their hands will get too weak for the work, and it will not be completed. But I prayed, now strengthen my hands. Isn't that an amazing bit? Isn't that an amazing bit? And what I want to do just really briefly is I want to take this and just kind of unpack it for us. Is that okay? And hopefully it will help you in the Monday and the Tuesday and the Wednesday and the week ahead for you. Beloved, good news always gets people's attention. Always does. And there will be those who will cheer us on. Come on, have a go. You can do this. Those who are for us. But there will always be those who come with contentious spirits. In other words, they are against us all the way. And so this passage opens here. In verse 1, it says, I had rebuilt the wall and not a gap was left. Incredible. They had built all the walls of Jerusalem, and I've been to Jerusalem. They built all the walls shoulder to shoulder with a trowel in one hand, in other words, doing the work, and a sword in the other hand, in other words, to do battle against the enemy. In 52 days. When God is at work, the word acceleration begins to happen. And get ready for acceleration here in East London. And so this was an amazing feat, but it wasn't finished. Beloved, so often I think we get taken out by the enemy because we relax too quickly. And it wasn't finished. The doors weren't up. And the enemy is always looking for ways to distract and debilitate, as I've said. And in John 10, verse 7, Jesus says, I am the door. Whoever enters through me will be saved. And so we've got to ensure that that door is there and that we open it up, that John 3:16, behold, I stand at the door and knock. So often we quote that to people who are not yet Christians, but actually it's to Christians. I'm standing at the door. I want to come in. I want to have dinner with you. I love the fact that the Lord loves food. It's just great, isn't it? I can't wait for that copy of it. I'm just putting it out there. All right, so don't eat all the samosas. But here was this whole thing. And then in John 10, verse 10, it says, but the thief comes to rob and to kill and destroy. And so it's not so much how we start building, it's that we complete what God has on his heart for us. That is the most incredible thing. And so in verse 2, we see this so-called friendly invite that comes from Tobias and Geshem and Sanballat. And it says, come and meet us on the plains of Ono. It's fascinating that the Lord always meets us on the mountain. Not on the mountaintop, but on the mountain. And Nehemiah says, but they were scheming. They were scheming. We live in a world where there is so much scheming. And that word scheming means to do mischief, to bring misery, to kill and destroy. And we see it in every aspect of society. There is scheming that goes on in the business world. There's scheming and mischief that's going on in the political world. There's scheming and mischief that's going on in the educational world. It's in every facet of society. And there's scheming and mischief that sometimes goes on in the very body of Christ. How tragic is that? And our response when those so-called friendly invitations of engagement come to us is to say, oh no. When the invitation, come and agree with me, come and gossip with me, come and buy into this little bit of mischief, we say, no, you're not convinced. We say, oh no. I'm not going there. I'm not going to engage in the so-called bits of information when news comes on News 24 or on the TV and everything's burning and everything's going wrong and the economy is going down. What are we going to say? Oh no, because our God is still in control. When the report comes on bad health, what are we going to say to the enemy who says there's no hope? Oh no. Why? Because we have an eternal perspective. And so if I'm not healed here on earth, by goodness, I'm going to be healed in heaven. Oh no. I'm not going to allow the enemy to come against me. And so in verse 3, Nehemiah says this, and I want to say, I love this because it's so relevant today. He says, I am carrying out a great project. And yesterday, when I was speaking to a group of leaders, I said, draw a circle around yourself and begin to say to yourself, I'm out to change my world. You can't change my world. I'm responsible for changing my world. But you are responsible for changing your world. No matter how big or how small it is, God has entrusted it to you. And Nehemiah's response says, I cannot and I will not go down. And we've got to watch that we do not go down in how we think, how we speak, and how we behave. Beloved, it's so critical in this time that we are living in. We've got to watch that we don't go to low-level thinking and low-level speaking and low-level behaving. We are not those who are breaking down. We are rebuilding. And when that happens, it says 4 times they try to wear him down. The enemy does not give up. He doesn't change his tactics. We've got to be aware of them. I'm not intimidated. I'm not fascinated, but I certainly am aware of them. And then verses 5 to 7, we see there is an increase of pressure. So much so, I love the way that they go. And Geshem says, I wonder who's our Geshem. Well, Geshem says, so it must be true. You know? We all have our Geshems, don't we? Don't listen to Geshem so much. And sometimes we've got to point at the TV and go, I'm not listening to you, Geshem. Oh, no. And sometimes those who want to Skinner in the office, we don't say it out loud, but in our minds we're going, I'm not listening to you, Geshem. Just keep the smile there. Lights on, nobody's home. I'm not engaging with you. And so they ratchet it up. And pretty much what happens is when they send that open letter, it means everybody can read it. They accuse Nehemiah of treason. What's our open letter today? Well, I want to submit to you that our open letter is called social media. Now, I have over 4,000 very, very close friends on Facebook. But I'm very, very conscious of what I post. And so often, we kind of scroll through, you know. We've got that as part of our, doom scrolling. This one's falling out with that one. Ooh. And we start doing that, don't we? Woo! And we start reading the letter. I want to encourage you, watch what you read. And also watch what you post. And we all going, and we've all been guilty of doing the other. But we need to do that. And watch, maybe there's a lot of gossip that goes on in our world. And accusations. And I want to encourage you, in all that goes on, do not become intimidated and keep your focus. And then in verse 8, I love it, Nehemiah refused to take the bait. Even though all this intimidation that was coming against him. And I love his response. He says, nothing like what you're saying is happening. You are just making out of your head. Once again, that low thinking compared with God thinking. And the Bible very clearly says to us, take captive every thought. Not just on Sundays, not just when we're sitting in here, but every single day. Take captive every thought. And is it easy? No. But it's well worth it. And it says we demolish, in 2 Corinthians 10 verse 5, we demolish every argument and pretension, taking captive to Jesus. And beloved, we need to do that. We need to stand strong. Dion, can I use you for a minute up here? Thank you, brother. If you can come up here. And so when the enemy comes and he wants us to go to the plains of Ono, sometimes, if you don't mind, I'm going to do this around you. Is it okay, Jen? He's been in Ireland, so he should be. But what the enemy does for us, and I want you to see this. Forgive me if you've seen it before. But he tries to push us around. He tries to push us around. And And so that's what happens. And we start, we kind of get off center. And then we start to hear what the Lord's saying. And we start to become strong in Him. And think of your workplace or where you're going on Monday morning. And so you've been pushed around by the enemy. By the way, sometimes we want to make the person our enemy. It's the spirit that's behind them that's going on. That's the enemy. So I don't fight people. I fight powers and darknesses in the name of Jesus. I pull those down. I love people. I value people, but I pull that down. How dare the enemy take them out? And so then we become stronger. And so we learn how to stand. And so it's difficult to push a man who has such amazing muscles, right? But here's what the enemy does. Here's what the enemy does. When we learn how to stand and we fix our eyes on Jesus, the author and the perfecter of our faith, we are standing, having done all the Bible says, stand. But then what the enemy does is that he comes and he leans. Anybody ever had that? Just leaning on us. Thanks, brother. And what we've got to do when the enemy leans, keep focused. God will not tire. He does not grow weary. And at the right time, he'll remove that and he'll go, well done, good and faithful. Because we will have opposition. We will have challenging moments. It's how we handle those in our lives. And then in verse 9 it says, and they were all trying. So as much as the guys were all together building, there was all this attack that was coming from the enemy. They were all trying to frighten us. And I know that place of being frightened. But it's what I do with fear that's important. Thinking. So this is the low thinking. Their hands will get too weak for work. And that's what the enemy wants. He hates it when we're about kingdom business. He hates it when we go, I'm in. I'm going all out for what God wants to do. Thinking their hands will be too work and it will not be completed. I want to declare over you today this truth, that the work that God has started in you, he will bring it to completion. Every single one of you, he will bring it to completion. And I've seen over the years that fear always shrinks my faith and weakens my hands, and I lose my grip. But nothing prompts faith more than the promises of God. Nothing prompts faith more. But I prayed. Now strengthen my hands. But I prayed. And there's a guy called Mark Batterson who's an author, and he says this: prayer is writing history before it happens. Isn't that cool? Prayer is writing history before it happens. But I prayed. And I want you to think of your circumstance, your home circumstance, your business, wherever God has placed you. Position your heart before God. And strength rises when you wait on the Lord. We've told you some amazing stories about what is happening. But in 2021, and forgive me if you've heard this story, but in 2021, I'd just come out here. We had started opening up our programs. And I'd been with the team for a period of time. And I'd flown back to London. I live in Manchester, but I had to fly to London because that's where the COVID hotels, prisons, were. And I was in my room. I was not allowed out of my room, as you know how things were in those days. And I got a phone call from our friend and colleague, Lizanne. And the phone call went like this: Lynn, there are armed men in the building, and it's hectic. And then the phone went dead. And I tell you, at that moment, everything inside of me wanted to go down into the plains of Ono. And then a few months after that, one of our precious, precious kids called Sanawu was walking in the streets, and he was shot by one of the gangs and murdered, this little 12-year-old boy. Oh no. Oh no. Oh no. And I tell you, the enemy was right there going, curse God now, give up now. Not only to me, but to our own team. Give up now. And we made a decision together as a team. We would be the walking wounded, but we would not give up. We were not going to leave. And out of that came an incredible buy-in from the local community. In fact, they now guard our gate every day, the CWP. And not only that, Captain Chummy from the police thinks we're the best thing since ice cream. And we can phone her with anything, and she's there for us. And so in closing, I just want to share with you, if you've got a few seconds, is that okay? Just a few seconds here. I want to give you 4 things that hopefully will be helpful for you in this week, and I promise you it's quick. All right? And the first thing is this. If we are going to be those who are rebuilding and getting on with what God has for us, be you at school, be you at university, be you a teacher, in the medical world, in the business world, a home executive, whatever it is, in this week, as you begin to rebuild and put the doors in place, number 1, be convinced in purpose. Every single one of us, no matter how old or young, are called by God. I'm 65, yay for me. These are laughter lines. And I'm still about my Father's business. I'm still alive. I still enjoy it. And by the way, just to tell you at the end of the story about the armed robbery, they took our computers and they roughed up our people a bit, but nobody lost their lives. And here's the deal. We had insurance, so we got even better computers. And not only that, the Khaleesi Foundation, Sia Khaleesi is our mate. The Khaleesi Foundation came and sent counselors who are with us. And we have seen God's favor come in the most amazing ways. So be convinced in purpose and doing it with all your heart. Beloved, you have a mission on the inside. No matter how broken you are, no matter how many knocks you've had, there is a mission on the inside of every one of you. I get really hacked off. That's a British statement. When people say, well, it's easy for you. If you know my history, it's not been an easy walk. You would not want my walk. Trust me. So be convinced in purpose. And keep your eyes fixed. Number 2, be committed in vision. If you aim at nothing, you'll hit it. And mischief comes when we just sit and watch Seven Alarm. I've never watched Seven. I don't know if it's on still. Or some program. What's it called? Scheme Psalm. If we aim at nothing, we'll hit it. And don't allow fears to intimidate you and hinder you. And I love the fact that Anna Marie said when God said to us, where do you want to go? And somebody said to us, don't go into Manenberg, Googs and Tambo. Graveyard. Nobody lost there. And we went, we'll have it. We'll do it. We'll do it. Committed in vision. Because our eyes are fixed. And I'm not boasting on us. I'm boasting on Jesus. Please hear that. And number 3, be constant in prayer. Prayer is not an added extra. It's a high priority. D.L. Moody said that the army of the Lord moves forward on its knees. That we learn how to pray in season and out of season. Because that's where we tap into the faithfulness, the brilliance, the wisdom, the strategy of God. And then be courageous in the journey. Keep fascinated with Him. And I constantly remind myself, God's provision is strategically placed on the pathway of obedience. As I begin to walk with Him, I see His outrageous provision. And beloved, we are all called to go on high adventure with Him. We are never called to just be comfortable. The kingdom is not about comfort. It's about violent men being about taking territory for the king. And one day, you're going to hear him say, well done, good and faithful. And in all we do in the rebuilding, it's all about Jesus. Our goal is always the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Let's pray together.